Hey 4th grade, welcome back to the art room. Sorry I can't be here today, but here are some directions for you to go ahead and wrap up your landscape project. First thing you want to go ahead and do is take out your landscape. By now, you should have painted all the sections of your landscape. There's no paint out today, so if you have a spot where you didn't finish, you can use oil pastels to go ahead and fill that in. Pick a color that you like that goes along with the colors you've already used. You can go ahead and color that in. I know it's not the same material, but if you're coloring slow and steady, you should have no problem filling in that space so it doesn't look empty. So I'm going to go ahead and finish in this last section of land. I didn't get a chance to stop coloring. Once I'm done coloring in any places that I needed to finish painting, I should go ahead and focus on my details. So I haven't added any pattern into my project. We've talked about some different artists who love to use patterns. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oil pastels, the tool you should be using for this, I'm using the skinnier pastels in the pink container. They're going to give me a lot thinner lines. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw it directly on top of my shapes that I already have. Picking colors that I think are going to show up really well, keeping my patterns kind of simple, but having some fun. Just a couple squares, simple thing to do on this pink section. And I'm just going around that area and adding in those patterns. This adds a little bit more interest and variety to your project and just gives it a fun little finishing touch. So there are some squares. Maybe I want to go ahead and pick out a different color, picking a lighter color right here. Maybe you want to go ahead and do some polka dots. Now, if I'm finding that the color I'm picking is not a great choice, I might want to try another color. Maybe I want to put a little white on top of it, see if that shows up a little bit better. That was a better solution, so it looks like white was a better choice for this. So think about your color choices, pick colors that you think are going to stand out. It's okay if you get a color that maybe isn't the best color. Try to find another color that you can put on top of it so that way you can see the designs that you're making. I've been sticking with some shapes, squares and polka dots, but you could totally go ahead and do something a little bit different. Maybe you want to go ahead and do some lines. But I've got lots of cool patterns on here. You could always also go ahead and draw some shapes inside of some of the things you already have on here. So maybe on my sun. Maybe in this house I want to go ahead and draw my door. So right now I'm adding patterns and details, deciding what things I still need to finish up, wrap up. I can keep this simple. I can make it more complicated. Maybe I want my house to have a pattern on top of it. Maybe I want my roof to be something super colorful, kind of going along with the look of my project. Maybe I want to keep it simple. Okay, so I've gone ahead, added my patterns. I know I'm not totally done yet, but I'm ready for the next step as soon as I'm done adding my patterns into this section. I can go ahead and start to do some outlining. Now, you might be thinking, black is the best choice. Doesn't have to be the choice that you make. I really like how white looks. I think it stands up really nicely. These are really great choices. Maybe I want to use a dark blue instead of black. That might be something that works really well. Or maybe I want to do a really light color that's going to contrast. I think I'm going to go with dark blue just because it's something that's different. First thing I'm going to go ahead and trace is my horizon line. Now as I'm doing this, I'm going slow, I'm pushing, I'm kind of going back and forth over my pastel so I've got a nice thick line that I can see. If I go too fast, what happens is my pastel gets a little bit kind of fuzzy looking. If I push really hard and go over it, I don't want to break my pastel, but by tracing it a few times, it starts to make it a little bit thicker. If I accidentally go a little bit too far, I can just go ahead and make this line a little bit thicker so it doesn't look like a mistake anymore. That little line blends right in, and my horizon line is showing up really nice and neat. So I'm just doing little back and forth movements, back, forth, until I get that all nice and traced. Once I've got my horizon line traced, I'm going to go ahead and start to trace some of the sections. Same thing, I'm going to do back and forth, making those lines nice and dark, so I can see the sections of my field, and it really just helps kind of all of my work look nice and finished and complete when I do that outlining. So I'm doing this bottom section. I probably should go ahead and outline my house. It'll help it stand out a little bit more. I'm sticking with my blue color. I'm not picking a bunch of colors. My landscape's already so colorful that I want to keep my outlining nice and simple. Now when I outline, I always watch what I'm doing. I'm watching where my hand is. I'm making sure my hand is somewhere so I can see where my pastel is going. Sometimes people rush on their outlining, and what happens is they have this really beautiful painting and then this really messy looking outline. It just doesn't look very nice and neat. My sun, I could go ahead and do blue, but I want my sun to look nice and warm, so I'm thinking maybe a darker color like a red would be a great color to outline. I went with one line right there, and then I kind of made a mistake, so you can see there's a little bit of space right there, but I can camouflage that mistake by making my outline a little bit thicker. Now it's going right to my sun. There's no space there, so go slow, go careful. If you make any mistakes, just make your line a little bit thicker. All right, so my project has painted sky, patterns on the ground, outlined sections, and it looks like I've got some really great finished details. So I'm feeling pretty confident that I am done. We're imagining that there's a line here, we're imagining that there's a line here, and we're imagining that there's some pattern here. I don't want to have to worry about explaining that direction to you. Since I feel like I'm done, I am ready to go ahead and have a conference with another peer who is finished. So you're going to come up to the front table and you're going to find this piece of paper. Now, if I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and put my name in the number 1 slot. So I'm going to go ahead and write Miss B. As I'm waiting for my next partner to put their name in, I'm going to go ahead and grab the green sheet of paper. This is what I'm going to have my partner do, but right now I can be working on the side for myself. So I'm going to go ahead and start answering these questions that are review questions about how you did on your pre-test, how you did on your post-test, and then your overall thoughts on how you did on your landscape project, what you would change and do differently, and if you like this project. While I'm working on this, if my partner signs up, let's say that Mr. Man is in the art room with me. Mr. Man put his name in the number 1 slot next to me, so he's going to come to me and say, hey, Miss Bergman, you're all finished, so am I. Let's go ahead and swap projects. So I'm going to give Mr. Man this paper, and he's going to fill out this art critique for me, and he's going to take my project with me. Mr. Man's going to look at my project, and he's going to go ahead and give me some thoughts. So what Mr. Man would do, on the top, he would say, this is an art critique for Miss Bergman. It's written by Mr. Man. And he's going to start by telling me something that he likes. For example, he could say, I really like how you use a lot of warm colors in your project. It's very specific about my project that makes my art different. He could say, I really like how you use lots of colors in your sky. Or maybe I really like this red-orange color that you made. So he can write one thing he likes. He could tell me multiple things that he likes. The next thing he's going to go ahead and do is ask a question. Maybe Mr. Man's really confused about the setting. Maybe he's really confused why I have 2 different colors in my sky. Maybe Mr. Man really wants to know how I made this color right here. So Mr. Man's going to go ahead and ask me a question. Finally, Mr. Man's going to give me a suggestion. Maybe Mr. Man realizes that I totally forgot to trace and add a pattern down here. So his suggestion might be, you need to go back and finish the bottom of your project. I could see that suggestion, realize that I made a mistake, and then go ahead and grab an oil pastel and finish my project. Or maybe I chose a color and Mr. Man thinks that it really wasn't the best choice. And he says, this color really doesn't show up. Maybe you should pick a different color. I might decide that I need to pick a darker color. He could give me a suggestion, and I could try another color on top of it to see if that shows up better. So if your friend gives you a suggestion and you can make that change, go ahead and do it. If Mr. Man has given me a compliment asked me a question and given me a suggestion, he's going to return my paper and my project to me. I'm going to finish answering my questions. If I'm all done, I'm going to turn in this paper, my project, to the substitute, and I can go ahead and do some journaling. Hope you guys have a great day. Please make sure you're getting 5 points, being responsible, respectful, helpful, and safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye!